In the US Capitol, Black Americans have accounted for 3 out of every 4 deaths caused by COVID-19. Living conditions put them in a more vulnerable position.
People of color are more likely to live in more concentrated communities or apartment complexes. They live in multi-generational housing, so you have an elder living with a child and a grandchild. And how can you socially distance in those types of conditions?
Black workers are also more likely to have frontline positions, often working in jobs where they need to show up to get paid.
Even among young people, age 25 to 34, we're seeing very disproportionate deaths among people of color, Black and Latino, like 7 times for Blacks and 5 times for Latinos in that age group. And I think that's probably has to do with essential worker status, just not being able to work from home, and mistrust of the medical system perhaps as well.
Access to healthcare is also an issue. Communities of colour are around 2.5 times more likely not to have health insurance, meaning they could face high bills for hospital stays or simply not seek treatment. And that's not all. Communities of colour fear that once again they'll have difficulties in getting their voices heard. More than half a century after the Voting Rights Act outlawed discriminatory practices that prevented Black Americans from voting. Black Americans often face voter suppression. Some Republican-controlled states have added rules like changing polling locations, restricting voting times, or having fewer voting booths, which Democrats say are all designed to make voting harder.
I am absolutely concerned about voter suppression. It's corrosive, it's intentional, and it's damaging to the fabric of American democracy. And it particularly injures Black people. Some people in power in certain parts of the country don't want a whole lot of people to vote because the likelihood is, particularly as it relates to African Americans, that those voters will be voting against the people who are currently in charge.
Record numbers of people are voting early in this election. So even with the double problems of suppression and the virus, voting experts are optimistic that more Black voters may end up having their say this election. Nick Harper, SABC News, Washington.